Hey there everybody, Sajah here, and I hope you're all having a good week so far. And I was sitting down this morning getting ready to get going on my work day, and I was drinking my tea. I was pouring my tea out of my thermos, and I was thinking about the tea I was drinking and how I shared this video with you earlier this week about the digestive system. And I was thinking about my tea and I was like, wow, this is actually a great, really incredible tea that I wanted to share with you. So what I'm drinking this morning is an equal part blend of burdock root, dandelion root, and chicory root, and I kind of mix that up with a little homemade almond milk and a little bit of honey to kind of sweeten it up, and it's this kind of really nice malty, warming, kind of almost like coffee but not quite, beverage there. And one of the things that's really critical about digestive health, as I mentioned earlier this week, is the microflora, all the beneficial bacteria in our digestive system. And the way we tend to primarily think about enhancing the microflora in our gut is through probiotics, right? Either a commercial probiotic in a pill, or eating fermented foods, or kimchi, or sauerkraut, or kefirs, and kombucha, and all sorts of things like that, right? The fermented foods. So we tend to focus on probiotics, but it's not as often that we tend to think about prebiotics, right? Like, we have this whole ecosystem of bacteria living in our digestive system, but what keeps them alive, right? We know antibiotics kill them, but what feeds them, right? What nourishes them? What helps them to thrive? And one of the key things there is prebiotics. And those three herbs that I mentioned that are in my tea that I'm drinking today, burdock root, dandelion root, and chicory root, are all root medicines that are all very strong in a prebiotic sugar called inulin. Right, and inulin is basically a polysaccharide. It's a complex sugar molecule that is responsible for essentially nourishing the probiotic bacteria in our intestinal tract. And so one of the things that's so great about these remedies is that they work on kind of this broad spectrum, especially dandelion and burdock, as they work on this very broad spectrum for restoring our gut health. Because on the one hand, they're great bitter tonics, especially the dandelion root. Burdock's not quite as bitter as the dandelion, but it's a little bit bitter. But dandelion's definitely bitter. So it has a bitter tonic action, increasing all of our digestive secretions and kind of moving energy in the liver and in the gallbladder. These are also great alternative remedies, right? So remedies used for what the old doctors would call bad blood syndrome, chronic skin conditions, or toxicity in the bloodstream, lymphatic swelling, kind of damp stagnation kind of tissue states in the body. So those alternative remedies like burdock or dandelion tend to cleanse the blood and the lymph and the skin and the kidneys and the liver. They're kind of the detoxifying remedies that we think of. And so when someone has compromised gut health, for example, leaky gut syndrome, and they tend to be chronically inflamed, there can oftentimes be a lot of accumulation of metabolic waste products, right? So there can tend to be what in Chinese medicine they would call like damp heat, right? There would be heat and inflammation, but this damp accumulation and stagnation in the body. Well, a remedy like dandelion root or burdock root, these are great remedies for clearing damp heat because they cool down the heat and inflammation and they drain the dampness and the moisture. So they're cooling the excessive inflammatory response. They're clearing out the metabolic waste products and accumulated toxicity in the tissues, and at the same time they're promoting digestion. They're strengthening the liver and the gallbladder, the stomach, the small intestine. They're they increase bile secretions, especially the dandelion root, and the bile is basically our body's natural laxative, right? So for people that maybe tend to be constipated, it's great for helping to move that through a little bit better, and then all the benefits of the prebiotic components of these remedies helping to strengthen the gut flora. So I was just really inspired to share a little bit about this tea that I'm drinking. And one of the things, as I mentioned earlier in the week, about bitters is that they are humorally cooling or energetically cooling. So for someone with a cold constitution, I usually recommend just putting a little bit of ginger root in that tea to warm it up. For people that maybe have a little bit of dryness alongside of it, we could put a little bit of licorice root in there too. And that formula right there is a 5-part formula, is kind of a great baseline formula for like a nice winter tea, kind of a winter gut tea, to help to strengthen digestion and enhance our probiotic therapy. So that would be burdock root, dandelion root, chicory root, licorice root, and ginger root. So 5-root tea. I really love that in the winter, doing it in crock pots. Now, to get the inulin out of the chicory, dandelion, and burdock, you typically have to do a very strong decoction of those herbs. So this is not, you can't just boil water and pour it over the herbs and let it sit for 20 minutes. You have to actively boil and simmer those herbs for quite some time. I mean, I do it in the crock pot, so it'll go 24, 48 hours and kind of cook it down and concentrate it. And sometimes you'll see that milky layer at the bottom. That's all of the inulin. Anyways, I was just really inspired to share with you some of the herbs that I'm drinking today that I've been thinking about, and kind of ties in to the video I was talking about earlier this week about gut health and our digestive system. So I'd love to hear what your experiences are with some of these herbs. Have you worked with dandelion root or burdock root or any of the other ones that I mentioned? And what have your experiences been of those herbs? I would love to hear about them. Go ahead and post those in the comment section below. And just as a reminder too, I'm going to be hosting a 4-day workshop out here on the School of Evolutionary Herbalism, going into a lot of detail on the digestive system, the liver and gallbladder, detox strategies, and gut restoration strategies. So I'll put a link for that course below, or for that workshop below. Be sure to check it out if you want to have an opportunity to come out here and study with me live here in Oregon. So thanks so much, everyone, for checking out this video. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. And I'll be shooting out another video next week where I'm going to talk about a different organ system, and going to be doing that for the next number of weeks here. So stay tuned for that. And until then, take care and be well.